Welcome to another episode of Money You Should Ask, where everyone has something they can teach you. I'm your host, Bob Wheeler, and in this episode, we're going to explore, question, examine, converse, dig deep, expose, laugh, and cry about the money beliefs, money blocks, and life challenges of our next guest. Turn up the volume, listen, learn, and laugh. Our next guest is Chris Craddock. He is the founder and CEO of the Redux Group, a nationally acclaimed real estate team. He is the host of the Uncommon Real Estate Podcast, a realtor, real estate investor and coach, and entrepreneur who runs multiple successful businesses in the DC metro area, including Richmond, Virginia. Chris's real estate team has sold over $150 million worth of real estate in 2020. He's been married 20 years and is the proud father to 6 beautiful children. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me here.
Well, we're being here. We're
I'm
internet wise.
I'm on the other side, and so I don't know. It just got lost. But thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Well, I will say before I was going to dive into a separate question, but your podcast talks about be uncommon.
Yeah,
right. Don't follow the herd. Be uncommon, and I like that because you're not saying you've got to be special or perfect. Just be uncommon.
Yeah.
Just do something a little bit different. How did you come up with that name?
I do a lot of teaching. And when I'm teaching, one of the things that I always talk about is, common people do what common actions, they have common sense. They have common, just everything is so common. But the reality is, people rail against, and I'm not looking to make political statements here, but people rail against the 1%. But the reality is the 1% are willing to do what the 99% are not willing to do. They're willing to do things that are uncommon. They'll work harder, they'll educate harder. They'll do all of these different things. I think everything always comes down to activity and skill, right? And so people, common people work as hard as everybody else. Common people educate themselves as hard as everybody else. And I think, if you want to win, if you want to be better, it's that slight edge, do your job and a little bit more, learn and a little bit more, all that other stuff is like, how do you get that winning edge? And so I think I just don't want to be common. I want to be uncommon.
I love that. Don't follow the herd. Create your own herd. Start a new herd. Now, you have 6 kids, so that leads me to ask you, did you grow up in a big family? Were you an only child?
I was the oldest of 3, but my wife grew up the oldest of 9. And
wow, okay.
I always thought that was crazy. And then when I went over to their house, and it was like a party all the time, and I was like, and I'm an extrovert, right? So if you're a disc profile guy for personality profile, like I'm a massively high I on the disc profile. I just like being with people, massive extrovert, and so when I went over, I'm like, man, it's a party all the time. I love the idea of a party all the time. And so, yeah, let's have a big family, have a party all the time. I don't want to do 9, but it'd be fun.
That's awesome. Now, when you were growing up in that house of 3 and you were the eldest?
Yeah, I was the oldest of the 3. Yeah, exactly.
What was the money scene in your family? Did money get talked about? Was there any expectations put on you as the oldest son? What was that like?
It's interesting. My family was a little bit, I don't know. I think everybody's family's dysfunctional, right? My family was a little bit dysfunctional when I was younger, and I was a delinquent. Like I just was always in trouble, always just doing bad stuff. And actually, that's part of my story is, I ended up getting involved with an organization called Young Life, which changed my life. It was so massively powerful. I actually went on staff with Young Life. That's how I got into real estate because, my wife got pregnant and I couldn't afford to live in the DC area on $20,000 a year. And I was in ministry for a long, long, long time. And always did a lot of premarital counseling and other stuff. And it was funny because one of the things we'd always say is, listen, everybody's got their own crazy. They've all got their own baggage. It's just, can you handle this other person's brand of crazy?
Right. No, exactly. So then you weren't sitting around at 5 years old saying, I'm going to build a real estate empire. I'm going to do all these things. I'm just going to live in the moment, maybe more so.
Going for ministry, with Young Life, like 20 grand a year. when you're trying to figure out how to do what you're going to do, I mean, I loved making an impact in other people's lives. It was just great. But, you also have to take care of your family. And so for me, I'll tell you, I just went and I went to the library and checked out every book on real estate investing and just tried to figure out how do you make ends meet, right? When you get thrown into the deep end and sink or swim, you got to learn to swim real fast.
Yeah. What was attractive about real estate to you?
There were a couple things. One, I saw, my dad's side of the family was very blue collar. My grandfather he was a road worker, made like $3 an hour, but somehow cobbled together a lot of money not a lot, but cobbled together money and kept buying real estate and ended up dying a pretty darn wealthy man, which is crazy, even though he's a road worker. My mom's side of the family, they were all white collar and they all were massively wealthy and they just always invested in real estate. And so to me, it was more like the devil, right? And so that was just like, when I look around, I saw that when I looked around to wealthy people, when I was on Young Life staff, people that were supporting us and other stuff, a lot of people were wealthy because of real estate. So it just seemed to make a lot of sense. Plus, I know you can make a lot of money in the stock market, but I just feel like real estate makes more sense to me because you can touch it, taste it, feel it. I don't know that you should taste it, but like you can, yeah. You get what I'm saying.
Well, maybe if it's the ocean and it's got a little bit of like a tequila with it, then maybe the salt water goes well.
Right.
I'm curious about now. You've gotten into real estate. Things have been really successful. You've got 6 kids. Do you talk to your kids about money?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, my kids, they have some of their own money. We pay them. We pay them as, because they can get paid and not have to pay taxes, right? So we pay them as models for our company, and they're all over our social media stuff and everything else. So, and then we talk about how to do well. And honestly, that's one of the things that I've learned is who you're around will dictate everything. I still remember one of the first books I read that got me excited about real estate was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And one
of the best books.
Oh, so good. And I still remember I was reading it. It was a Saturday afternoon and I was reading it and he said, almost all wealthy people have their own corporations. And I was having dinner as a family, we were having dinner with my uncle who was a commercial lender. And I know like half the people he hung out with were like these like massively wealthy people. And I remember just saying to my uncle, as like a 20-something-year-old kid, do most of the people you hang with have their own corporations to run like taxes and like for tax reasons and everything? He's like, yeah, I've got my own corporation. I take a loss of like 90 grand a year. He's like, it's awesome, because he's a commercial lender, but he had his own side corporation that he was able to take losses in for tax reasons. And all of a sudden I realized there's this language of money that we don't realize. Like I teach sales training, and I've got a daughter who's 4, and she uses the wrong words sometimes. And but she's learning to use the right words. For us, like in sales, it's the same thing. You got to learn to use the right words. Money has its own language. It has its own laws. And if you don't follow that language and those laws, then you're going to break the rules, and you're going to get put in money jail, which is called being poor.
Exactly. Well, to the point, just to point out to listeners, and maybe you're doing this, maybe you're not, but I'm wondering are you funding Roth IRAs for your kids that are getting some salary?
Well, this is something that we're trying to work through. We just had our, oh man, you're touching a pain point right now. So with our business, we were just going through like some of the retirement stuff for other stuff. So we have not been doing that for our kids yet. But this is something that we were talking about funding Roth IRAs, talking about putting them in self-directed stuff so that they could have their self-directed Roth where they could put it into other investments. Man, every time you just make me feel bad because I know it's something that needs to happen, but there's only so much time in the day. But yes, because the fact that you're putting kids on salary, which is great, people don't realize they can do that. They just need to have a task, whether they're being a model or whether they're just
organizing paperwork in the office. But if you can at least give them $6,000 and put some money into a Roth IRA for them, man, they won't thank you now, but they're going to thank you later.
That's powerful. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you just reminded me that it's something that we really, really, really need to do for them, for sure. For sure. Yeah. What is your take on the cash value life insurance? Are you a Dave Ramsey side, or are you more on like some of the other side?
For me, life insurance is great if you've got a family and kids, and it's like, for me, it's that, or maybe for long-term healthcare and using a whole life policy or universal policy that's going to let you have that. Other than that, I sort of don't really dabble in life insurance personally.
Yeah, it's interesting just because, I love like self-directed IRAs, and I'm at a point in my life where, heck, 10 years ago, I joke about this, but it's for real. I was trying to go to NIH to sell my blood for $300 to buy Christmas presents for my family, and so like, that's where I was like 10 years ago. And then, now I'm just on the total opposite spectrum of that, like total opposite spectrum. And so now it's like, I love the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the things in that book he talks about is like, your money is an army. How do you deploy it? How does it go out and fight battles and come back better? And actually, I heard somebody refer to wealth as being when your money works harder than you do.
Oh, nice. I like that. And that's, I think, what wealthy people do is let their money work for them versus people that want to show people, look, I'm rich, and they're just blowing through money. People with wealth tend to just stay off the radar, let it do its thing.
Yeah. 100%. And
how did...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But I was saying, but that's like the Roth stuff. Like you put it in, you let it start working, you let it flex its muscles.
Yeah. And look, for folks out there, self-directed IRAs are great. Make sure you know the rules, because all those stock people out there don't really like self-directed IRAs all that much. So there's a lot of rules. If you're not careful, they can unwind that self-directed. But it is a great way to invest in real estate and all kinds of other things other than just stocks and bonds. So definitely look at self-directed IRAs. As you were telling your story about 10 years ago, things weren't as good as they are now. And you're, hey, can you buy some of my blood? How do you keep the faith? Like, how do you stay in the game sometimes when it doesn't feel so optimistic, when it feels like, this is pretty dark? How do you know that there's better days ahead?
Yeah, when things are down. Well, I'll tell you, one of my mentors said this to me: never trust someone that doesn't walk with a limp. And I think that's a real truism in life. Is I was talking to a friend who just dumped a lot of money into a real estate syndication where somebody's putting together a big apartment complex and people are dumping money into it. And I talked to the guy who he was going through the syndication with. And he'd been in the business for 2 years. And I said, so what happens when it goes bad? And he's like, well, we're buying so that it won't ever go bad. And as soon as he said that, I said to my buddy, I'm like, run, brother, run. Like, this is scary, because the second somebody says it's not going to go bad means they've got no clue what to do if it does. And they're doing it with their money, somebody else's money. So, why worry about it if it's not your money, not my money? Like, well, if it goes bad, sorry, buddy.
Yeah. No, and I've seen investors or advisors will be like, yeah, you lost 100,000, you lost 500,000. Like, that's somebody's money that they, sweat and tears went into that.
Yeah.
For some.
100%. Yeah, that's it. Like, it's... This is your money. You worked your butt off to get it. And so for me, I'll tell you, when I got back into real estate, 2011, 2012, I started flipping houses again. So I made a lot of money. When I started flipping houses in the early 2000s, I made 12 times what I made in a year in about 4 months. And I just put it aside, continued doing ministry. Well, as I started having more kids, I got back into real estate. And what I realized was that, I could make a lot of money because I started flipping, made a lot of money fast. And Jim Collins in his book, How the Mighty Fall, talks about the hubris born of success as one of those main reasons. And man, I thought I had the Midas touch. I thought everything I touched turned to gold, and it was turning to gold. The problem was I found so many deals that we couldn't turn them around fast enough. And so all of a sudden I had a lot of amazing deals. And so I went to the banks, got as much money as I could from the banks. I went to friends, family, everybody. I'm like, this is a great deal. And so we ended up with like massive, like we had 27 deals we were working on. And I owed $10 million to banks and friends and family and everything else. And all of a sudden I realized that we were going to run out of money before the next house sold. And man, I'll tell you, I got as creative as I could. I sold as much as I could, as fast as I could. I never worked as hard as I did then. I did things that I would never do ever again. Like, I don't know if anybody's heard of subject to or seller financing, but essentially I let other people do the deal, finish the deal that kept the loan in my name. But I don't ever do that, but unless you have to. But honestly, I didn't have the time or resources to finish those deals. So I had to do that. And, man, it was crazy, but we got out of it. It ended up costing me $660,000, which I paid off over 2 years, but got out of it. And man, there were some dark nights of the soul, but I'll tell you, I learned so much from it. And it made me the man that I am today. It also forced my retail team to grow a lot faster so that I could pay off $660,000 in 2 years and still afford to live. And I got that done. And then because of that, I was able to, we have a ton of other businesses now that all work in conjunction with our retail team.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes trial by fire is the best way, as long as you eventually get out of the fire.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Man. Yeah. It felt more like combat by fire, but yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, now let me ask you this. I'm going to jump back to your kids for a second, because I really do love talking about kids and money and how we consciously or unconsciously deal with kids around money. So if one of your kids comes and says, "Hey, Dad, Mom, I want a bike," is there a conversation around that?
Well, my 4-year-old last year or 2 years ago wanted it's called a camper car. It's a $400 thing. And I said to her, no chance. We're not getting you a $400 thing, because I don't want like trust fund babies. And she kept asking. And I thought, because at the time she was like 3, I was like, "Skylar, it's $400. And she kept saying, "It's $400. And I'm like, "I'm not going to buy you something you're not going to use for $400. Like, it's just not what I'm going to do." Could I afford it? Yes. Did I want to? No. And so I said to her, I was like, "Listen, if you remember and ask me for this by your next birthday, then we'll do that." So that was one of the times where I just gave them something but literally every day, like, she would come up to me and give me, like, she'd find like $1 somewhere or find coins on the street. And she's like, "Daddy, is this $400? And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, she's not going to let this go. She's not." And sure enough. So I got myself stuck into buying a $400 car. But, my son, he wanted one of the VR Oculus deals, and, I wasn't going to pay for it. So he went out and he mows lawns and he umpires baseball. And so, he now has the Oculus because he earned the money to do it. And so for me, I feel like you don't have, because if you don't work, you don't eat. That's like kind of the way it works. You got to learn how to do that. And I'll say this, so my wife won some major awards in screenwriting, and we were out in Hollywood. We walked the red carpet. There was some like really cool stuff that happened with that. And I met a guy who owns a company that basically his whole company was helping people transfer wealth from one generation to the next. And and so I said to him, I was like, "So tell me about this. How do you avoid the trust fund baby syndrome where people just feel entitled and everything else?" And he said, "The first generation worked so hard to get it. The second generation still is usually pretty good with money because they saw the pain that it took to get that, and they understood it, And then the third generation tends to be very soft and just spend the money. And then he's like, or you could hear it that the first one was builders, the second one was maintainers, and the third one were snowboarders.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid that because when you're sitting with a lot of money, it can be sometimes hard to be motivated if you didn't have to work for it.
Right.
Now, I'm curious, this is out of left field. You've got sons, you've got daughters. Do you notice any bias in the way you talk to your sons and daughters about money or goals or any of that stuff? Or is it pretty even playing field?
No, it's pretty even. They're just all so different in the way they act that I treat them, I treat them differently for sure because their makeup is different. Like I think they get treated differently because of how they see stuff. So my oldest daughter, I mean, she's a killer. Like she is like, I mean, she could be a CEO. She could take my job tomorrow, right? Like easily. And so kind of helping guide her, knowing that that's where it's at. Like you see, like my other kids, they all have their own different path that they're on. And so I just look at that and try to treat them differently based on their style and what they'll be. Because not everybody's made to be a CEO. Not everybody's made to be the guy that picks up trash, right? Like everybody just has their place, and then or what I call it, I've got a sign in my office that says, "Are you in your genius zone?" And so, you just try to figure out what is their genius zone and how do you encourage them to be in that genius zone. And then how they handle money, how they handle everything will come from that. Because if you're excellent in the workplace, I'm a Christian guy, like I said before, there's a verse in the Bible that says, you see a man skilled in his work, he'll stand before kings. He won't stand before obscure men. And so that's the thing is if you can find your genius zone and really go after it and really be excellent, the marketplace rewards excellence, right? People think that getting money is like winning the lottery or getting lucky. It's not. It's a reward for excellence. And so that's what we're trying to do with our kids more than anything else is figure out like, where is your genius zone and then encourage them to live in that. And that's how they're going to be rewarded financially, I think, in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you and your wife have the same money beliefs and the same spending habits? And if not, how do you work that out? And if so, did you know that ahead of time? Was that even a conversation when you first met?
Yeah. So I'm definitely more frugal, for sure. But she is too. So she was the oldest of 9. They had no money, like none.
Right.
So yeah, as she was growing up, she just didn't have money to spend. So she doesn't like go blow money on stuff. I'm very much like, I don't like to spend money on things, although it's weird because like I would, save money. And my parents always said that like as a kid, like they're like, you're always saving money because delayed gratification was something that I was always okay with. Right.
Wow, cool.
I knew that you work hard, you could spend it later, but then sometimes my problem is less, overspending and more not spending on things that I enjoy. Like I'll give an example. Like when I was a little kid, I still remember we were in Wildwood, New Jersey, and we go to we went to this ice cream place, and everybody had $20 for vacation that we could spend. We were all like little kids. We all had $20 for the week that we could spend, and my brother and sister both paid the extra 10 cents to get their ice cream cone dipped, and I was like. Mm-hmm. I'm not paying 10 cents for that. No way. And so I saved it, but then I watched them the whole time enjoying their dipped ice cream cone. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, why didn't I just pay the 10 cents? And so I think that's where I struggle sometimes is, sometimes, it's, or when we were in ministry, here's something that's just ridiculous. When we were newly married, I mean, literally we had no money. I told you, 20 grand a year, try to make that go far in the DC area. Like our end tables were boxes that we put sheets over. Right. And,
yep.
I never would turn on the AC or the heat. And I still remember my wife came in one day, we got married early. Like we were both like 22. She came in and she's freezing blankets, everything. She's like, Chris, I really think heat is worth paying for. And so yeah. That was kind of the thing, where we were. So we both kind of came from that idea that we don't want to spend frivolously. Although, I mean, we're building a house that's probably too big, bigger than we need. But we look at it, and part of the reason we're doing that is we want to host people. We want to host fundraisers. We want to host, so there are reasons we are doing that. So, anyway, I probably rambled too long.
No, that's awesome. I love that. And I'm wondering for the people out there, because I'm also the one that's probably not going to spend the 10 cents on dipping the ice cream. And so sometimes I have to talk myself into things, even though I'll tell other people, do what you want, follow your passion. And I'm like, but I'm going to hold mine over here. So how do you talk yourself into paying for the heat or making those decisions where, I can afford it and I'll really enjoy it? Like, what's the dialogue?
Well, here's the rest. I think who you spend time with will dictate how you think, right? And so one of the things that I started doing a little bit of now, I think he's a little more hardcore than I like to be on stuff, but I started listening to a little bit of Grant Cardone stuff, which his whole thing, he's like, cash is trash, did it all, like I don't want to be the millionaire next door that wore nasty clothes so that I could have a big retirement. And honestly, that's one of my issues with Dave Ramsey, right? Like Dave Ramsey is like don't enjoy anything you're making now so that maybe by the time you're 60 or 70, you can enjoy it. And I just don't think that's it. And so I've really been wrestling with that in my own mindset is, you know what? If I'm going to work hard, like my whole motto in life is work hard, play hard. So like, why would we not spend the money now that we're working for? Why would I wait until I'm 60 or 70 to enjoy what we're doing? And so that's, that's my internal dialogue. And so I listen to some guys like that. Now, again, I don't know that Grant is my, the whole role model as far as where I want to spend money, but he's a very smart guy and I love it. But that's one of those things where, I'm just listening to people that's saying, hey, you know what? If you're making it now, enjoy it now. And frankly, I've been massively blessed to get to a point where I went from nothing to it's just incredible. So now I'm like, well, yeah, I should spend it. I should enjoy it. I should be able to do that. And honestly, so I'll give another example. And actually this came from my wife. Like I always wanted a truck, but I never got a truck before because the gas mileage was terrible. I'm not a construction guy, so I don't really need one. I just think they're really cool, everything else. And so about 3 years ago, I was selling my car and I was going to get a truck and I was looking at a bunch of mid-range trucks and my wife's like, why don't you just get the truck that you want? And like my dream truck is a Ford Raptor. I love Raptors. I think they're incredible. And I'm like, I don't want to spend that kind of money on a truck. She's like, why not? What else do you spend the money on? And I'm like, I just don't. And I went back and forth and it just made sense. She pushed and now I have a Ford Raptor. And I'll tell you what, I love my Ford Raptor. It's so fun.
Right. Absolutely. That's awesome. I mean, I think those are the things that are important in life is actually enjoying what you've worked for. And I think that like I'm in agreement there that we have to live and enjoy and not wait for, I'll wait till I'm 70 and then I'm going to travel and then I'm going to do this and this. We may not be here when we're 70 or our health may not be in such a place that we can do things. So I'm a big believer in finding that balance of not creating unnecessary debt, but having an amazing life along the way instead of just saving it until we get to the final destination, which is sort of the end. Like have a lot of fun in between.
Right. 100%. That's it. And everybody's always saying, wait till you're older and then have fun. And that's the whole thing. That is not for me.
Yeah. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your life. Well, so Chris, we are at the Fast Five, and we're going to just change the questions a little bit. These are just top of mind, and let's just see where they go. If you found $2,000 on the ground, what would you do with it?
I'd give away some of it. I'd probably just put the rest in savings.
At a good interest rate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got my account that I use for flipping and, buying other properties and all the other stuff. So, and then I just, whenever I have deals, I can just buy cash and flip and everything else. So I'd probably just put it in that account.
Yeah, perfect. What do you want your money to do for you that it isn't doing for you yet?
I keep wrestling with whether right now I have all of my investments where I've got massive equity pay down. So it's not cash flowing that much, but because my businesses are cash flowing a lot, I want to keep it like that for tax reasons where my net worth is growing because I have as much cash coming in from my businesses as I want. And I'm always trying to not pay as much in taxes. So that's it. But on the other hand, I look at it and I would like my income to be at a place where with my cash flow to be at a place where if I want to stop working today, I could stop working today. And it's not there now. I probably could restructure it where it could be very close to where I could stop working, but not quite there with what I'm doing with my life right now.
When you get unplanned inflow of cash, do you usually spend it or save it?
Come on, I already answered that question. I'm just kidding.
I sort of knew the answer.
You know the answer to that. I save
Put it in the bank. Put it in the bank.
But here's the thing. I put it in the bank, but then I'm always looking for investments. Like always looking for investments.
Yeah.
To spend that
Absolutely. On. If you could use only one word for the rest of your life, what word would you choose?
I'll just say awesome because my wife says I say it too much.
Awesome.
I love it. I love that word.
It's a great word. It's a pretty awesome word. In your opinion, what types of purchases are worth going into debt over?
Anything that is going to appreciate in value, as long as again, you don't want to get into the liability Kiyosaki, Ramsey argument, but what is willing going to like an investment? Although, I mean, this is a much longer conversation. College, right? Like, are you investing in yourself? Buying education. I think we're spending over 6 figures a year on personal development every year for coaching and building up. Because your business and your life will grow to the extent that you grow. So anything that will appreciate, whether it's personal development or whatnot, but not cars, just not things that are liabilities.
Unless it's a Ford truck.
Yeah. Bought in cash.
But there you go. You bought it cash. So there you go. Not going into debt. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at our sweet spot, our M&M spot, our money and motivation. I'm wondering if you have a piece of practical financial advice or just a piece of wealth wisdom, something that you've learned along the way for our listeners.
Yeah. Lead with revenue. Always lead with revenue. If you're a business owner, you lead with revenue. So one of the things is, I heard Gary Keller say this in a small group meeting. He said, your business earns the right to build out its org chart, right? So a lot of people are just spending money, hoping it'll work, rolling the dice. And sometimes it does work. I'm sure it does. But for me personally, I think that you should lead with revenue and prove that it's working. And then when it's working, you spend more money on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Chris, as we're coming to the end here, the thing that I sort of keep hearing, even though it hasn't been said explicitly, is there's a lot of trust there. It feels like there's a lot of trust in yourself and a lot of trust in what you bring. What I'm not hearing is that your worth is based on how much money you're producing, but that there's this piece about also giving back, wanting to help other people, wanting to be of service, and even with your own kids, not trying to get them to be mini versions of yourself, but recognizing that we're all unique individuals that all have unique needs and wants, and so there's just it feels like there's a real space there to just welcome whatever's there.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, if you're not serving others, I mean, what are you doing? And back to, like, why are you here on this planet? Right. If it's all based on you, then, your life is going to, I don't know. I think you're going to end up having an empty glass at the end of your life.
Yeah, no, I totally believe that we're all here to be of service. And that's how we pass on our legacy is leaving the place a little bit better than we found it, and hopefully making somebody else's life a little better than it might have been otherwise. So I appreciate that you're out there doing that in the world. Where can people find you online and social media, and people want to get into all this flipping or buying or just connecting with you?
Yeah. So if somebody's already a flipper, I've got a program on Wholesaling Inc., wholesalinginc.com/revive. And I teach people how to make a lot of money from leads that are sitting dying in their database. You can go to my website, chriscraddock.com, and you'll find some videos, some books, some reading lists there. I am active on Instagram, Cradrock, CRADDROCK. And one thing, so many people were so generous with me with their time. When I was listening to podcasts, people were literally, if I liked their vibe, I reached out to them, and I could not believe how many people would respond to me and spend time with me. So I've made it an effort to, anytime somebody sends me a DM on Instagram, I always try to respond to that. And so that's been really, really fun. So those are some of the things there. If you're a real estate agent, go to my my Facebook group, Uncommon Real Estate. And if you're a real estate agent or investor in that world, that's my podcast goes towards agent investors. I know the average person listens to 7 podcasts. If you're a podcast listener, I'd love to be one of your 7 if you're a real estate agent or an investor. And that's what we talk about, is how to invest and be a good agent. So that's that world there.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we include all that, and hopefully you'll pick up some followers and listeners for your podcast, which sounds like again, I love the title. So folks out there, please be uncommon. So I want to say to our audience, please don't forget to share the love. Like, follow, and share on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for Money You Should Ask, all one word. Follow this podcast on your favorite podcast player, or visit Spotify and search for Money You Should Ask, or click on the link in the description. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For more tips, tools, or to learn how to have a healthy relationship with money, visit themoneynerve.com. That's nerve, not nerd. Chris, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. I'm using your word, but it has been awesome. Thanks so much.
It's been fun. Thank you.